This week on Walk and Talk Podcast, we're in the studio with Chef Ryan Yost, who traveled from Western North Carolina to spend a day with us here in Lakeland, not just to talk, but to cook. Ryan's path through food doesn't follow the traditional blueprint. He's worked fine dining, hotels, country clubs, and culinary institutions. But today, his work lives at the crossroads of food, humanity, and crisis response. As a chef manager with Operation Blessing, Ryan feeds people in moments when food means more than technique. It means stability, dignity, and care. Disaster relief cooking doesn't come with applause or perfectly plated dishes. It comes with limited ingredients, no second chances, and people who are hurting. Ryan has cooked in Jamaica, Ukraine, the US, and beyond, often feeding people who don't want food, they need it. That distinction matters. Today, Ryan is also our studio chef. He's cooking 2 dishes here with us, applying the same respect and technique he brings to high-end kitchens, even when the context is completely different. Because for Ryan, the ingredient always deserves respect, whether it's a premium cut of protein or a box of donated veggies. This episode isn't about heroism. It's about responsibility, humility, and what happens when chefs use their skills for something bigger than themselves. Chef, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Carl.
What a day. What a day. You know what I love about this? Chef Ryan flew in from North Carolina to be on the program, to be in studio. And I respect that. Like, you have no idea. Looking you in the eyes, Ryan, right now. Total respect for that. The fact that you work in disaster relief and you're feeding people, that is a walk and talk media pillar of who we are and what we want to represent and be a part of. So thank you sincerely for being here and flying and coming in.
Thank you for having me. And I'm glad to be here. Glad to be in the studio. Felt so welcome being here. And I'm hoping that I can get the message across that especially young culinarians that, the restaurant field is not the only route for you. There's a lot of different routes.
Well, before we get into all of that, let's talk about the grub. First of all, I'm full. I'm happy. I'm full. You can say I'm fat and happy because it's true. Let's talk about the dishes today. You kicked off with this incredible soup. And I told you while we were in production, all right, it's soup. Expectations are mediocre. And we've had some really great soups on the show, by the way. But again, it's not like a fat ribeye or something like that. It was gorgeous and delicious. Talk about it.
It's a mussel and saffron nage with grouper in there as well to make it a little more meaty. I just put a touch cream in it. It's still light. It's not going to be a chowder like, it's something you can eat in Florida in the summer. And it's got a sweet and savory vibe to it that you might not expect from soups. With the apricot chutney on top, that's kind of the punch in the face that I love about it.
Support for Walk and Talk Media comes from Metro Food Service Solutions, trusted by kitchens that need storage and workflow that actually does the job. Learn more at metro.com.
So yes, and saffron in and of itself is, the most expensive ingredient by weight, more expensive than gold. So it's such an elegant touch to it that it has its own unique smell and flavor that I adore.
I'm just saying, gold hit $5,200 an ounce last week.
Well, did you see saffron the other day?
What's a nosh?
So it's basically, it's a soup that's you use the liquid that you poached the shellfish in this case, the mussels. We cooked it in the with the champagne in some water, and then the aromatics in there: garlic, pepper, onion, fennel. The classics that go with mussels, and building flavor, because that's what soup's all about, right? Is building flavor in time. Time. Time.
I bring up a lot on the show that for me, the one bite is more important than a plate of food in front of me. You wouldn't tell by looking at me, but I would prefer to have a built-up spoon of just a flavor explosion, right, than a full plate of, whatever it is. Both of your dishes today, I got that. The citrus component, that was with the mussels and the grouper, and wow, man, that was a delicious soup. I'll say it again. We've had great soups on here before. This hit the spot on flavor profile, and they're beautiful. The photography that John did on them, as per usual on the quality, but like you don't expect it from a soup.
Right. Yeah. I mean, John, you made my food look 20 times better than it already did. So I appreciate that. And that's what I'm all about, is that first bite, that first impression, so, and you eat with your eyes, right? You eat with your smell. So choosing the right vessel, from choosing the right vessel to choosing the right ingredients, making sure they work. And I really like, aggressive flavors that just pop your palate. And to me, this is something that's still light, but it still pops your palate with the citrus and sweetness.
What was the second dish?
Second dish was a little bit heavier on the palate. It was a pork belly with a blood orange gastrique, a sweet honey rutabaga puree, and to pop it off with a little freshness at the end, to put a Napa cabbage and apple slaw, classic pairings of pork and apple.
Again, I took a spoon. I got some rutabaga puree. Obviously, the pork belly. You're never going to pass that. I put all the ingredients on the spoon and just had a fabulous bite. Of course, I ate a lot of pork belly, but that one bite was where it needed to be.
Right.
You, sir, know what you're doing.
Thank you.
So before we go further, I just want to say that we have Frederic Casagrande, who is our live fire correspondent from Dubai. He covers Europe, all the barbecue competitions that are happening internationally, and he's got a banger. It's going to be coming up later on in this episode. He's interviewing Chef Andrew Dickens. And I have to tell you, between Frederic and Chef Andrew sounds like he's maybe from the UK, and our boy Frederic is French. This is the most gentlemanly conversation I have ever heard. This is like National Geographic collides with barbecue coming up. Chef, you didn't start out planning a career in disaster relief or nonprofit work. So when you look back, what was the shift with your relationship in food and ambition?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for asking. Early in my career, I was about proving myself in the kitchen. I was about being the fastest one, being the one with the best technique, putting the truck away, going on the grill, doing the dishes. And then that shift happened when I was got called to run a soup kitchen, and I'll never forget that moment. For the sake of the conversation, let's say his name was Adam. He was a homeless man. He was manic. I was running the soup kitchen during the fentanyl crisis, so I saw a lot of people that just got dealt a bad card in life. And I remember walking out there with a plate of food and telling him, "Here you go, man. I love you." I don't know. It just was told to say that to myself. And he looked at me and just started crying. So from that moment, to me, food was more about connecting with people than the technique I did or the plate that we used.
Well, let's be honest. You didn't say that to yourself. That was a divine download.
Definitely, 100%.
Before you actually got here in studio, we've had several conversations. You've said cooking for people who need food changed you more than cooking for people who want it. Can you explain what the difference is from your lived experiences?
So when people want food, it's a preference. It is, when you go out to eat, it is a entertainment, right? You've got the lights, the champagne, the cake. It's somebody's birthday. You're celebrating something. To me, when it's someone that needs food, you're meeting the survival need, a basic need that everybody should have. Food, water. Those are the two most important things that you need for survival. And, when I'd been a part of this at Operation Blessing and serving people that had lost their house in Jamaica, or their family member had passed from a tornado that hit their house, we were giving them the first, real life way of the shows that you love somebody by meeting a basic need that, hey, we're here. We see you. I'm gonna know research, whether it's through the locals, of what the cuisine is that reminded you of your grandmother's cooking, because like I said, food is about connection. It's about, smell, seasonings, all that stuff that remind you that maybe your grandmother cooked is what I'm a part of. So understanding them each level regionally.
4 out of 5 hospitality professionals have faced at least one mental health challenge during their career. Stress, burnout, anxiety. These are everyday realities in kitchens, dining rooms, and bars across North America. The Burnt Chef Project North America is here to change that. They provide free, anonymous support, direct care, training, and self-care resources designed specifically for chefs, servers, and hospitality staff. From therapy services to educational modules, they're answering the call for help in one of the toughest industries. It can't be done alone. Your financial support makes this possible, ensuring that every hospitality professional has access to the tools they need to thrive. Join the movement in breaking the stigma. Email uscanada@theburntchefproject.com for donation details and mailing information, or learn more about the mission at theburntchefproject.com. So in my estimation, disaster hits, food is scarce, electricity, all the basic things we take for granted on a regular basis kind of disappear. When relief arrives and they finally get food, and it's something that, like you're saying, relative to the area, for their palate, their understanding, that's got to feel terrific. Because in the darkness of it all, the nostalgia and the flavors and whatnot has to bring some peace in the face of horrible circumstances.
Ingredients are scarce. We might not have the chicken or the pork for the jerk chicken or jerk pork like we did in Jamaica, but we'll jerk some tuna, canned tuna, stuff that we have. We're big about getting a rounded meal. So I remember that my first few days, I think I told you, Carl, that I had handed somebody a plate of food and they were crying and said they hadn't eaten in 4 days. Can you imagine not eating for 4 days because you were stranded somewhere up there and you finally made it down the mountain? So to me, this is what really keeps me going is giving people stability, making sure the food is safe, and making sure the food is intentional based on where we are.
We do a lot of work with different causes, and everybody does something special. And I don't remember, and maybe one of them brought it up too, but at this moment, I don't recollect. But if you're doing groundwork to find out about what the locals eat, I think that's really cool. I don't know that a lot of people who haven't participated or been involved in disaster relief would know that there's that effort. There's another component, a nuance to make things feel as close to home as possible. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's kind of what I see. Our volunteers that work with us, they're so important and they care more, like it's their job, especially when we're in different parts of the world. We really depend on the locals for whether it be, logistics, what is light, which store is the best store to buy a propane regulator. These little things that, we're prepared for because based on, just experience of doing it again and again that, we kind of see what we need to do, adjust, and go on from there. So I'm very thankful for the volunteers that we have.
So when disaster hits and, food is, of course, the first sense of normalcy people get, I think that the approach that you have, and probably some of the other organizations too, there's just a lot of respect there, So, I'm sure you get thanked all the time. But publicly, I just want to say, we really appreciate all of the work that everybody does. And you've worked alongside other major relief organizations. How does coordination and respect between the groups actually work on the ground?
I would say no one owns the response is the right way to say it. We need each other. We all have our specialty areas. We all have our knowing where we can get stuff. It's all about collaboration, whether it be, some people might have a more focus on logistics, manpower, local knowledge, resources for building materials, resources for food. So really, we're all in this together. To just uplift the community and love on those people that have been affected. Our focus is, is to uplift this church, whether it's had some roof damage or, that's a regular I've seen a lot is pastors are just as passionate about helping others that without their support, whether it be, just knowing the locals or whether it's pastoral care, that's what keeps us going too, is just to keep uplifting the church.
I need to know where you got this philosophy from about treating every ingredient the same, whether it's a donated cabbage or a fat ribeye.
So one of the best chefs I ever worked for, Chef Joseph Miller, he was a great chef from Indiana. He does some classical French cuisine. I learned a lot of that, learned a lot about sous viding there. He said one thing to me that I took away, that, this potato you see right here, and it needs to be treated with the same care as this, ribeye steak. And I really honed in on that because to me, an ingredient is sacrifice. And what does that mean? A farmer raised it, someone harvested it, someone transported it, someone gave their money to donate it. So respecting the chain of people behind it and the person receiving it, and the cooking technique is a way of honoring that.
Somewhere out there, someone is hearing this and they're saying, but what do you need like a chef at ground zero at a disaster site? Walk and Talk Media is proudly supported by Rack Porcelain USA, creating durable, beautifully designed tableware for chefs and hospitality professionals. Learn more at rackporcelain.com. How does applying chef-level techniques in extreme conditions like that change the outcome? Not just the food, not just for that moment.
We're feeding a lot of people, thousands of people a day. When we first got to Jamaica, and being a chef is more than about cooking, right? We got to be organized. We got to know how much product we need. The worst thing is to not have enough product to meet the need. And as far as technique is, to me, cooking technique specifically, it's something that us chefs, we are familiar with. It's a constant. And during a disaster, when everything else is inconsistent, we know, hey, we got these ingredients. What are we going to make with it based on the cooking technique that we know and can apply to make the food taste 20 times better than doing it another way?
It's not like you're out there doing a chef and cut on basil. You're doing like some laborious sort of like grit flipping burger sort of work.
Yeah, I mean, and there is some fine cuts and stuff like that so we still have to make it look nice, so.
Which I think is important. Again, the average person who I believe would, imagine what disaster relief is thinking like, okay, there's a tray and you're just slopping a ladle full of something on a Dixie plate or whatever. But that's not what it is. You're not doing that. You're going above and beyond.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get a smoker. We'll smoke some pork. We'll get a grill. We'll grill some burgers. We've got ovens that can make roasted chicken, fresh vegetables if we can. I'm big on trying to support local farmers if we're in the area, support local stores, small grocery stores. So we're not only, feeding people just to meet that need right away. We're trying to be some stability, set them up to get them back on their feet instead of saying, hey, here's some food, see you later. That's not what we do. And that's why disaster relief, the volunteers are so important.
You carry yourself differently than a lot of people. You're not a preachy guy, but you are rooted in faith. How do you personally balance belief with action in the field?
It aligns with what we do at Operation Blessing. Is we're all God's people, no matter where we come from, what we do. And this is the way that we show our love to people. Through my role specifically, it's feeding them, seeing them. And if they want to pray, that's fine. If not, that's okay too. I think that, we're all called to serve others and just show love.
That has got to be one of the most difficult asks, biblically speaking, that there are. To love your neighbor. And I don't mean like you're the person who lives next door, just people that are out there. It's hard. I think it might be easier to have a heart during a disaster, but nevertheless, it's a big ask. And I think everybody who's in any sort of relief, regardless of the organization, I don't know. My hope, this whole food media thing that we found ourselves in is to be a conduit for, or to amplify reputable organizations as possible, because I feel like it's a thing. John, right? You shaking your head? Yeah. Okay. Someday, dude, you're gonna put your little volume up and say something. No? Okay.
I mean, you said love. I didn't say I had to like you. But what is love, right?
Amen.
What is love, Carl? If I say I love you and I'm say, hey man, you're talking too loud in my ear. That's what love is. Sometimes there's hard love, and that word. But to go with what you're saying, yeah, it's a lot easier said than done to love everyone, especially somebody you might not care for if they're a mean person. It's hard. But I just do what I do and know what I know about food, and when it comes with food, it's hard to somebody that's already grumpy. Usually they get a little bit happier when I hand them a warm plate of food.
Now, John's shaking his head there, Mr. Grumpy Pants. Okay. This is a terrific segue, Chef. This session of Walk and Talk Media is made possible by Citrus America, delivering fresh Florida citrus and juice solutions to food service professionals nationwide. Learn more at citrusamerica.com. The fact that you've been in these crisis zones, how has that challenged or, strengthened, if you will, your worldview around humanity?
I would say it's both challenged and strengthened me. I've seen people in the worst moments that they can endure. They've lost their house, they've lost a loved one to a hurricane or a tornado or flood. But also, there's something I carry with me every time, and it's, something Mr. Rogers said. His mom had actually explained this to him. He said, "Mom, why do I see so many bad things on the news?" And she had said, "Son, look at the people in the background. Those are the people helping. That's the good in the world." So there really is a lot of good and hope in this world, but, it doesn't always get covered. That's what I really hope and pray for, make the news, is that, there's people that are out here to help each other. We are so much more alike than we are different. So it's convinced me that hope, it's not an abstract thing. It's practiced.
I feel like changing my shoes and putting on a sweater. After that, nobody knows. Nobody knows. People listen to you.
Won't you be my neighbor?
Won't you be my neighbor? Nobody knows what we're talking about, Mr. Rogers. I mean, very few. I mean, obviously, if you're, oldie, whatever, old head or whatever, yeah. But, man, if you're like 25 years old, you don't know who Mr. Rogers is, right?
Well, you got that movie that came out a few years ago about him, so that might have brought it back to light. But, yeah.
Well, there's the memes that were coming around, like where he was, they said he was like a Marine and tatted up.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, right. You've worked in some high-end places, and you've also worked in environments where Michelin-level precision isn't realistic. But the expectations are still incredibly high. For you, Chef Ryan, from your perspective, what does excellence look like in those moments?
Excellence is doing all the small things right. Being successful at doing the little things. Consistency is something that a lot of great chefs live for. Doing the same thing every single day, day in and day out. And we may think that, these aren't victories every day, but they are. These small victories are good. And, being on time, finding the right resources, being proactive, safe food, that's very important to me. The standards might shift, but the responsibility doesn't, and just like in any other high-end kitchen, I really rely on my other team to help us, and that's something that I love about Operation Blessings. Our staff is we will help each other. We wear many different hats. I will mix some cement for you if there's not much food going on, and the guy that's up on the roof will come down and help me chop up some carrots or something. So I think us knowing what is priority is big, and I'm so grateful for that, because you don't get that everywhere.
Are you able to share what a moment of victory looks like from one of your experiences being out in the field?
Yeah, I mean, we can say, in Jamaica, we had a bunch of pastors picking up for their community because the need was so widespread. There's some areas that we couldn't get to. And for us to meet that need, we had to be in different locations cooking. We had to get the right, equipment. And, sometimes the equipment doesn't work. Sometimes the oven, half of it doesn't work. We go in there and the generator's out. We're out of water, so we get all these curveballs. And as I sit there with my other chef at the end of the day, we look at each other and we said, hey man, we fed everybody. Everybody got food, and it's the same within, in restaurants. People don't see what happened between the raw product and when it got on the plate. So, and that's the ultimate goal is get it done, and me as a chef, I thrive in curveball environments, and I encourage everybody to be uncomfortable in whatever situation you're in, because being uncomfortable promotes growth, right? If we're comfortable, we become complacent, and I think we all need to grow. And with that, you got to be a little uncomfortable.
Chef, there's all sorts of domestic disasters you've been to, Jamaica, of course, as well. Then you were out in Ukraine. Obviously, there's a war going on. It's a hot spot. What is it? I can't wrap my brain around performing something as simple as cooking food. And not that that's simple, but like it's like for you, it's a second nature thing. So for you, cooking is simple, but how are you doing that in the midst of a war? What's that like?
I'm got to go back to my faith. My faith was truly tested at that moment, sirens waking me up in the morning and, a bomb's going to go off, somewhere in the country. It is daunting, but, I truly believe that, God had tested my faith in that situation because, as we all are, we all have strayed away, and that moment, changed my life with faith. And, at Operation Blessing, the people that are in the offices, they're a great support system. They reach out to us. They say they're praying for us. So, those things, they go a long way, whether, you see it or not. So, and being blessed enough to be part of this is, traveling the world. We as chefs, we're students for life. It's something that we're always learning, any other job is a profession, right? But in cooking, we're students for life. So I've been so lucky to just be by an older lady or an older man that to show how they do it, whether they built this, this pot over rocks and or boiling water for their borscht or, their sausages and stuff like that. So I've been very lucky as a student of the game to know how to cook and how they cook, because we have so many different cultures here, that we might be stuck in, we've got these induction burners, we've got this and that. But I think seeing how other people do it is very eye-opening to me as a student.
How close were you to the hotspots, like to where there was actual action happening?
We were far away. It was on the Hungarian border there, so in a town called Mukachevo. So I learned a lot about the history of Eastern Europe. I think that's a lot of stuff that they don't talk about in schools. The violence that's there, the system and all that, of people. So I've learned a lot traveling.
Support for Walk and Talk Media comes from Crab Island Seafood Dip, creating chef-driven crab dips made with real seafood and bold flavor. Learn more at crabislandsseafooddip.com. So the Ukraine deployment for you, it was actually less about cooking and more about support, and it had to do with children and whatnot. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. So like I said, at Operation Blessing, what I love so much is we all have each other, our backs, we wear different hats. And I was called there to help with construction. I didn't know much. I don't know much about construction, but I know how to work with my hands. I mix concrete, stain the house. So we had worked on a lady whose husband had died in the war. We built her a house through another organization And, that collaboration really strengthened us. It strengthened our team. And yeah, like I said, wearing different hats, I'll do what it takes, whether it's, cleaning up, areas, some of these areas that we saw were bad. And we have, a program that we also do called the Seed Program, where we provide a person, or a family, I should say, with seeds and training of planting, in this case, potatoes. I had witnessed get harvest, where we show it to them to be sustainable, right? And then they take care of it themselves. So, they would get several kilograms, I should say, of potatoes every year that they can hold. So there's a lot of different factors that go into what we do, more than just, hot meals.
So after everything you've seen and everything you've experienced, from disaster zones to feeding thousands, you still like the simple action of being in a kitchen?
Yeah. It's every time I'm in the kitchen, it's a chance for me to serve. To be honest with you, there is a lot of hard days. We're on our feet several hours a day. The chefs are the first ones to get up and the last ones to go to bed. But, it's a chance to serve. Every meal is a reset. It's a chance to bring stability into someone's moment, whether it's in a disaster or, wherever we may be. As long as food can keep doing that, I'll keep showing up.
We're living in a time where, with social media and the celebrity chef and whatnot, I think times are changing. I think there's a transition happening now with the whole, dare I say, celebrity chef moniker. But kids who are, teenagers getting into their early 20s who might have a desire because they see somebody on TV or a documentary or whatever about a chef, and that kind of pushes them into the kitchen, which is great. With the exodus that happened after COVID of hospitality personnel, whatever it takes to bring people back, you got to do it, right? There's more than just James Beard or Michelin or celebrity in food. There's what you do. How would you explain that to somebody who's looking to get into this industry?
It's going to be, you got to put in the work, the time. You got to be a sponge. You got to absorb all of the knowledge you can, no matter where you are, and keep learning different chef styles.
But is it more than that? Is it something where you're like, is there something greater than just chasing some sort of celebrity or fame? What you are doing, is that a good enough reason to getting into culinary?
Yeah, I'm, connecting with people, and my main goal in life is to be a model for the other young students or my children, just to help others. Whatever skill set you may have, apply it to help others. Whether it be cooking or math, I should say. Learn how to do it to help others. Because we all need each other.
I think the fact that Operation Blessing, that you guys work with other organizations, and all of the work you're doing, if it were me coming up and I was a kid and I wanted to get into the kitchen, I feel like I would want to go this route. That's just me. Obviously I want to get experiences everywhere, right? Stage at awesome places and get that, but I feel like I'd want to land where you're at.
Hi, I'm Fred Casagrande, barbecue champion, pitmaster and founder of Smoking Beard. I'm French, based in the Middle East, but for the past 2 decades my fire has traveled far beyond geography, on competition grounds or around open flames. Live fire cooking isn't a trend, it's discipline, it's technique, it's anchored in history, but it's evolving faster than ever. And around the world, there are people shaping that evolution. Pitmasters, chefs, builders, organizers, and quiet operators who are pushing the craft forward. This isn't about nostalgia, it's about where live fire is going and who is carrying it there. This is the Live Fire Report. Today we're live from the biggest food festival in blooming city of Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, where we're going to talk about culture, education and scale. And for that, I am joined by Chef Andrew Dickens, who has been hosting the Fire Pit at the Taste of Dubai and Taste of Abu Dhabi festivals for the past 5 years. Welcome to the Live Fire Report, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Fred. Lovely to be here again.
And to start with, I'm going to let you introduce yourselves and, what you've done for Live Fire over the past 2.5 decades already.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, 15, 16 years ago, I came out of the Royal Navy as an electronics and weapons engineer, which was brilliant. But when I came out, I kind of got into kind of event work and this kind of thing. And then I'd always been into food, and I think that was because of my travels in the Navy. So everywhere we went, there was interesting food from different cultures and different drinks. It was fantastic. And I had this really random opportunity to host a show at Taste of London 15, 16 years ago. And it was the UK's first live barbecue cook-along, where you could come and cook along. Very well-known brand. I hosted it, and they were fantastic. And all I did was host it. Now, I knew how to do a bit of kind of live fire cooking anyway, but not very much, I don't think. And in that process, this particular group of people, they said, "Do you want to come and train as a barbecue chef?" And I went, "Yes, please. That sounds amazing." And then I spent 2 or 3 years going around the UK to all these massive garden centres, teaching the techniques for this particular company. And it was brilliant. And that's what really started it. I then met a guy in Hartford who had this incredible kind of big garden centre. And he loved it. He was 20 years ahead of his time in the UK. And he said, "Would you like to do our own courses and take it a lot further?" And that guy, on the strength of one conversation, built the UK's first fully covered and fully heated barbecue school. And I then ran that for about 10 years with him. And then also a friend of mine who you know very well, Joseph Nesbitt Larking, who's my long-time barbecue buddy, friend, collaborator, is obviously here at Taste of Dubai, running the fire pit with us here. And over that kind of 10, 12 years, we taught about 10,000 people the joys of live fire cooking. And that then snowballed into so many other things. Now, I was already hosting Taste of Dubai right from the second ever Taste of Dubai. I hosted the Celebrity Chefs Theatres. And I did that for kind of 8, 9 years. And then one year I just said, "Hey, why don't we do a fire pit?"
Yeah.
And again, that started that route. And kind of 4 or 5 years later, here we are. And it's amazing how one thing can then lead on to this whole world for you. And that's exactly what's happened in my case. I'm so lucky.
Yeah, I mean, it's a series of opportunities that you generated and then took, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and, a lot of people are just passing on opportunities.
Yeah, but every step along that way, when the opportunity came, I said yes immediately, and then thought, "Oh, I don't know how to do that. I better find out how to do it."
Yeah.
So I always said
Wing
yes.
it until you make it.
Wing it until you make it. So say yes, then do your research, and then carry on, but do it anyway.
So, I mean, there's one question that I always wanted to ask you, because you started that in a country where, frankly, the weather doesn't always invite people to stand outside around fire, like, rain, cold, short summers. It's not exactly the romantic image most people have of live fire cooking. It's a bit the same in my home region in northern France, right?
Yeah.
It's there was not really, before I left in 2000, a live fire cooking culture or a barbecue culture. So how did you sell that idea that, it is enjoyable, it is earned, and it's something that is really good?
It's a brilliant question. And if we take a simple example, North America, Canada, they barbecue and cook outside all year round. And if you think, take someone that everyone in Alaska, Christmas, they're all doing their turkeys on the barbecue out on the porch. And there's like 20 inches of snow knocking around. It never stopped them. All that happened in the UK was we were like 20, 30 years behind all those fantastic people doing that. And they say that guy is absolute visionary, Russell Jeffries, sadly no longer with us. But he was genuinely in the UK, he's a visionary, because he was doing this before anyone else. And it took that meeting where because he said, "If you want to do courses with us, and we want to do it all year round," I said, "Well, what we need is someone to build something that's got a roof over it." And then he started building it. I couldn't believe it. And ever since then, we've just been saying to people, you don't need anything fancy. All you need is 4 bits of lumber with a basic frame. You could have crinkly tin roof on it.
Absolutely.
You could put a little perspex roof on it. You could just put a bit of 12 mil ply and put some fake shingles on it. You, for a very, very small amount of money, once you've got a roof, you're in business all year round. And then people started realizing that actually in the winter, with a lovely coat on, and you might have, for example, a nice glass of vin chaud or something like that, or a mulled cider, or even a cup of tea.
Yeah.
You can be outside and you can be cooking everything that you cooked inside, no matter what it is, not just barbecue, everything, baking cakes, meringues. There's no stopping you.
Yeah.
You can do that all year round. And people have started to realize, especially in the UK over the last 10 years, this is good for your mental health. It makes you feel good.
Yeah, it connects you more with nature.
You get out in the garden and, you know, and by the way, if you live in the UK and I live in the northwest in the UK, it rains a lot. Okay.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And it's like, we've got these spaces and we are only in them 10% of the time. Well, you put a rudimentary roof over something, you can be out there 90% of the time, and suddenly everything changes.
So you have noticed over the past 10 years a culture shift in the UK towards more connection with nature, more outdoors living, more outdoors cooking. Right?
Oh, absolutely. And the proliferation of outdoor kitchen companies that are doing stuff and making really nice stuff, outdoor pergolas, like, you know, I mean, you can spend a lot of money on some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
But you don't have to. You don't have to. Very rudimentary is all you need to get yourself out there and get cooking.
Yeah. So how would you approach the opposite problem, like here in Dubai? So our winter right now is 20 degrees. It's the most lovely period to be outside and grilling.
Yeah.
I still smoke and grill during the summer.
Yeah.
But when the temperatures reach 50 degrees Celsius, what would be the mitigation there?
So let me imagine, right, so I don't know your setup because I've not been invited to your house.
So you have been,
no, I have
made the time.
I'm joking, everyone, but we have. But I would guess that your setup outside is you've got probably an area that is in shade most of the time and also has some kind of shade screen over the top. That's the first thing. In this area, even in the winter here, which is gorgeous for us, you want to have some kind of...
a net or something.
A net or just a bit of shade.
Because the sun hits quite hard.
Yeah, even at this time. So where we are at the joint barbecue school here, the Sumo Gourmet Fire Pit, we've actually got umbrellas for the daytime just to take the sun off the guests. And it makes a huge difference.
It does. Now, one question, obviously, when we do those master classes here, it's a relatively small scale. All in all, we have roughly 20, 30 students that are grilling and cooking along. But you've done massive barbecue classes in your school, right? I mean, we talked earlier about more than 10,000 people trained over the course of time. So how do you scale up education where there is something that is so dynamic as live fire cooking? It's where you have to pay constant attention.
Yeah, it's people. So I used to do courses for up to about 20 people, and I could do that on my own. We would have someone to help just assist with kind of ingredients coming in and a
fire management,
general bit of husbandry. But then at the school, which is called the Riverside Barbecue School back in the UK, sadly it closed a few years ago. I think the land was so valuable it had to be sold. But when I met Joe at that school, in that area through a mutual friend, and I already knew he would be good, I suddenly thought, now then, if I've got a second person, now we can do 30 people per course. So we would do, every course is 30 people. We'd do a prep Friday, course Saturday, course Sunday. And then that's how we ran that thing. But as soon as you go over 20 people, you need 2 pit masters, because otherwise the natural level of chatter becomes too loud. But when there's 2 of you, you can manage it really effectively.
Manage smaller groups and dynamics
exactly right.
within people. So showmanship versus discipline, because we talked about some of the roles that you've played, like you're also an anchor, you're also a host, an MC, an actor. So obviously there is a little bit of theatrics that come into play when you animate a group around that. But what have you seen in terms of evolution? Are people attracted by that, or are they coming for that, or are they coming for the technique, for the craft? And once they're here, what is it that keeps them engaged?
I think initially it's curiosity. People think, I'd really like to try that. I'm not that confident, so I'll try this out. And then when they come along, it's about the resource that the people have put into it. It's about their ability to communicate really clearly and effectively. So my wife will tell you, I am an over-explainer. And she's absolutely right. There's no question about that. But in a teaching environment where you're teaching people about live fire, where if you don't do it correctly, people can get hurt.
If you don't do it correctly at that exact point in time, you miss the moment You miss the teachable moment.
So you need all those things in place. You need to have everything organized beforehand. And then in our case with 30 people, you need 2 people. I would like to make a point. During COVID, everyone got in their back gardens and started cooking. This is brilliant. And there were so many amazing people that started doing stuff and were really blowing up on the internet and things. My only slight concern about it was when we came out of COVID, there was this proliferation of lots of people opening up kind of barbecue schools.
Because they thought they knew.
Yeah, and we went to a few of them just to check them out quietly. We didn't say anything. But there were so many schools now where you go along and you pay quite a decent amount of money and you basically watch one person cook 4 things while you stand there, and then you might do a bit of prep on another one. That was never our model. Our model right from the start was we're directing traffic. You are doing it. Every single element, you are doing it. You're doing the fire, you're doing the prep, you're doing the cooking, you're doing the management, you're doing the change of the temperatures. And that was really important to us. So that has been a bit of a disappointment. The UK is full of people that are doing this at a very, very low level. That said, there are also a decent amount of people that are doing that really well.
And that really prompted another question, because when the culture matures, the expectations grow higher.
Yeah.
Now I know that you have recently started new barbecue school in the UK.
Yeah.
So you must have noticed some change in people's expectation, people's behavior. So what exactly has changed over the past 10 years?
It's an interesting, I think a lot of people are a lot further on. So if you go back 15 years, the UK, we were like 30 years behind everywhere else in terms of our knowledge. And we had some very old-fashioned, outdated ideas. People post-COVID now really want to get out in their gardens more and they want to experiment and play and have a nice time. So their expectations are definitely higher, and that's a good thing because that pushes us. So with the barbecue school we used to run was actually just north of London in Hertford, and I'm based in Manchester. So for 10 years I travelled down to do it, and it was brilliant. But as I've got older, I wanted to do something up where I live in the northwest. And a couple of years ago I met this great guy called Jim Kenyon, who had a small shop selling really premium outdoor barbecue cooking equipment. And he just said, do you want to do a school here? And so we're now at a place called the Lambing Shed in Knutsford, which is gorgeous, big, lovely farm, family owned. They've got a deli, they've got a butcher's, they've got a cafe, there's a florist, there's loads of other like small independent businesses in there. And we're now in there as the Fortin Outdoor Cooking School. And we go live with our first courses on March the 7th, and then again right the way through the year. But again, most important, there's a really nice roof on it because we're in the northwest and it rains a lot. So we'll do our courses all year round. And I think
I saw a couple of videos, and extremely nice and lovely setup.
Absolutely gorgeous. You know, in January, if we get some snow or something, it'll be lovely. There'll be snow all around the farm, and then we'll be doing this lovely cooking. But yeah, we just want to keep raising the expectations and raising the standards of what we do, but not forgetting there are still a load of people who need to master the basics and the fundamentals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always going to cater for them.
Yeah. So I mean, you need to build up people's competencies and capabilities from the very basics of understanding cooking, understanding taste, and understanding meat and protein, and understanding fire.
Exactly. So when we do, I mean, Fred, for all you folks listening, Fred obviously does loads of demonstrations with us here at the Fire Pit at Taste of Dubai. Again, you know exactly what the right thing to do is. You're going to produce something at the end is unbelievably delicious, but the steps that you took to get there are thoughtful, logical. The flavor profiles also work. There's technique involved in every part of it, but we're not rushed.
No.
When we're doing your sessions, we're not rushed, and we see it all the time, don't we? People they're so unbelievably surprised when at the end of 25 minutes they've cooked something really incredible without any stress. Yeah,
and I think this is the perception of people, is that the entry ticket is very high. You need to buy very expensive equipment, and you need to know a lot of complex techniques and everything, and they just don't want to get into it. They're like, well, it's too much for me. But it's not, folks. It is simple, it is enjoyable, and it can be very cheap.
Yeah, I mean,
equipment.
So I would one caveat on that: don't buy really cheap, because
you will have to replenish and replace very, very often.
Yeah.
That's
so I would say buy the best that you can afford. And there's a great baker in the UK called Richard Bertinet, who's just fantastic, and he talks about bread. And he just has this lovely saying that he said, I obviously can't do it on the podcast, but he basically puts his hand on his heart and he said, if you don't feel it in your heart, nothing happens. So whatever you buy, whether it's an electric barbecue, a gas one, a charcoal one, a pellet smoker, and there's so many options. Whatever you buy, it should be the thing that makes your heart
Pound. Yeah.
Don't buy something that someone else advises you. Buy the thing that makes your heart go, oh, I love that. And then learn that technique.
Yeah. Master it. I mean, there is a concept in martial arts called shuhari, which is learn the technique, master the technique, forget the technique.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of people take a shortcut and go straight to forgetting the technique. And they're like, well, I can just wing it.
Yeah.
You cannot just wing it. You will either undercook and get somebody sick, or overcook and have to order a pizza.
Exactly right.
So before we come to a conclusion, there is something I wanted to talk about, which is the responsibility of first exposure. Because people like us, when we do those festivals, very often we are people's first exposure to live fire cooking. And we can either make or break. I mean, I'm not going to exaggerate a little bit, make or break careers or vocations. I mean, how do you approach this responsibility?
Actually, you mentioned something earlier on. When I left the Navy as an engineer, I actually went to drama school. And I came out and I did kind of TV, film, theatre, radio, and I still do that on occasion. But that's a very stupid job to have, because unless you're lucky enough to get famous and get constant work, you're out of work more than you're in work. Yep. So that's where all this other stuff came in, which has been a constant throughout the whole thing. But going to drama school, what it gave me was the ability to speak clearly, make people understand the techniques that we're doing, get a message across. But here's the most important thing. In a fun and entertaining way. Joe and I think when we do all our barbecue schools, we actually call it, it's food entertainment. So we're serious about the food and the techniques, but it has to be entertaining. Again, when we did our little tour of all these places that opened up post-COVID, there were so many people who were technically really good and you couldn't take that away from them. But I literally wanted to just fall asleep. Right, and that's nothing against that person doing that. They're really trying their best. But if you want to go to a school and learn some techniques, you're going to be really. If you go somewhere where they've got great skills, great resources, great information, great teaching, but if they're fun, and if you can have a good time, and you think of the whole thing as entertaining, then it sticks in your brain so much more.
Yeah. And that's how the human brain is wired.
Yeah.
It's wired to take that from another human being.
I've just realised I've basically just said, I'm really entertaining everybody. Well, I'll let the others be the judge of that. But bearing in mind, we had people for 10 years come back on our courses. People did 8, 9, 10 of our courses and they keep bringing their friends. We always took that as a good sign. If people come back, it means they like the whole experience and they're having a great time. And that's what this is about, isn't it? Yeah. Feeling good.
Absolutely. And we see that here at Taste of Dubai. I mean, we can see the same faces coming over and over.
Yeah.
Not just during one edition, but year after year,
you
see the same faces. That's absolutely beautiful. So I think, thank you very much for your time, Andrew. We saw that hardship, bad weather, and limited condition actually forged a more serious live fire cooking culture, not only in the UK, but it's just like fire has to be earned, not just enjoyed.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Well, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure, Fred.
I'll let you go back to preparing for the next session.
And of course, we will see you on a couple of demos today as well.
Absolutely.
Love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This was the Live Fire Report with Chef Andrew Dickens.
Chef, man, thank you for coming out today. Thank you for coming to Florida for this, to the studio in Lakeland. How do people find you?
Yeah, Chef Ryan Y is my Instagram. And if you guys want to help support Operation Blessing, it is at Operation Blessing on Instagram or at ob.org.
I'm going to be sure John is going to do it too, Pooch as well. We're going to push that out there. John, as always, man, awesome job on the photography, dude. Watch out for the videos that are coming out too. Yeah, man, let's rock and roll. John, we are out.